Okay, 5 schools, 2 universities, over 1,500 hours spent in a swimming pool, 39 countries visited, in which I did 2 skydives and experienced 1 pretty major burn from a marshmallow, 2 careers, 2 startups, and this is me, a 30-something-year-old doing what I love. So I'm going to start at the beginning and take you through the journey that I've experienced to get to where I am today. So travel and sport have been a huge part of my life ever since I was 9 months old. I got on my first aeroplane aged at 9 months. I now blame my parents for my desire to travel and the number of air miles I've racked up over the last 30-something years. We moved around a lot as children. By the time I was 8 years old, I'd lived in 4 different cities. I was up to school number 5. So having that constant moving around and, I guess, instability always made me wonder where my next move was going to be. When I went through secondary school, sport was the thing I cared about the most, swimming in particular. My poor parents took me swimming before school, after school, weekends, and if any of you are swimmers, you know it's not a spectator sport. They gave up a lot to ferry me around the place. But it wasn't a surprise when I sat down with my careers advisors when I was 17, 18, going into university, and they asked me what it was I enjoyed doing, what it was I was good at, and I answered sport to both of those things. So lo and behold, I went to university and I studied sport. So 3 years I spent having the most amazing time, playing sport, studying sport, doing all the things that students do. I was a very naive 18-year-old going to university. I'd grown up in the country. I'd gone to a relatively small school. When I got there were people studying PR, marketing, all these things that I didn't even know existed because my world had been around sport. I got to hear about stories that people were telling around traveling. I thought, this is great. I want to travel. I want to travel even more, outside of Europe and America where I'd been with my parents. So lo and behold, university finished. I wasn't ready to get a job, so I went to Camp America. Anyone that's been to Camp America will know it's the best thing you can possibly do. 3 months in America, again, playing sport, listening to people's stories, talking through your life experience. It was a fantastic opportunity. During that time, I was getting constant emails and messages from my parents. Have you found a job yet? What are you going to do when you come home? And I was like, delete, I'll figure this out later. At one point, I actually phoned home and I had a few ideas that I'd kind of run past my parents. They were like, no, I don't think this is a great idea. And I said, you know what, I've got this really great idea, Dad. I know what I want to do. He said, oh God, what the hell should she come up with now? You can't be a beach bum for the rest of your life. And I said, I want to do a master's degree. And a sigh of relief that he was happy I was actually going to do something productive for the next couple of years. So I went to study and realized that actually a master's degree is nothing like studying an undergraduate degree. You don't get the student loan, so you can't go out drinking, partying, and doing all the fun things that you do as an undergraduate. So I then was forced with getting a job. So I was working full-time, studying full-time. It was a pretty intense couple of years. Now, this was in the early kind of 2004, 2005 period. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with a small TV program called The Apprentice. Well, that's when it first aired. And I was watching this program, and I thought, my God, I want to do what these people are doing. This is like so much fun. I was working in sport at the time, obviously. And so I went about setting up my first business, which was a swim school. I wanted to give something back to the sport that I'd grown up with and that I'd loved so much throughout my teenage years. So I built the client base from scratch. I set up the business. I ran it for a couple of years, and then I exited it a few years later on. And I sort of got, sport had been so huge, and travel was obviously something I'd really enjoyed. And I was sat down with a friend, just catching up, and at the time, lo and behold to me, I didn't know he would do it, but he worked as a management consultant. And he was telling me about his stories about how he'd traveled the world and how he was getting paid for it and how he was on expenses. And this sounded so glamorous. I was like, I want to travel the world and go to all these amazing cities, and be paid for it at the same time. And so, what is it you actually do? And he said, I'm a consultant. I said, right, I'm going to be a consultant. So the next week I applied for a job, got my first job as a management consultant, and off I went. 8 years later, it was probably the worst decision I'd ever made. Any of you that are in the consulting corporate life will know that it's incredibly hard work. You're pushed to boundaries you never thought you'd be pushed to. You find out things about yourself that you never thought you'd find out, and you do things you never thought you could do. Yes, I got amazing experience working for some of the biggest corporations in the world, from Unilever to TUI, BP, etc. But whilst I was working in consulting, I also got involved in an internal program, which is all around connecting people and networking. And I came up with this idea that I wanted to do this particular training course, took it to one of our practice heads, who then took it and told me to go and put it in front of our CEO. And I said, well, I don't even know the CEO. I don't know how to do this. He's like, it's fine, I'll make the intro, just go and do it. And the CEO said to me, I like the idea, I like where you're going with this program, but why now? Why now? And I said, well, because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And said, okay, one more question. Why are we not making this a global program? And I was just absolutely flabbergasted that he'd even said, yeah, okay, we can do this thing, which is basically was going to be like a big drinking session for a load of young consultants. He said, I want this going out across the entire firm. So I was like, okay, yes, of course. I'm not going to say no because you're the CEO of our firm. So yes, of course I can do this. So I went about doing that on top of my consulting work. Lo and behold, it all got a little bit too much. And 8 years in, I actually had a really bad illness, and I was out sick for about 3 months or so. And I think my body had just decided it was going to give up, and I was burning the candle at both ends. And so the one thing I really learned from that experience is you've really got to listen to yourselves, and you've got to listen to your body. But after that particular period of time, I took some time out and I went traveling, and then that's when I came up with the idea for Jambo. And I came back after the time away. I was in the Middle East and Africa and South Asia, just in case you were wondering where I spent those 4 months. And yeah, I kind of came back and said, right, this is what I want to do. This is what I love. I want to build a network that connects business travelers to each other, to the cities they're in, and enables people to expand their professional network, because I know you're only as successful as your network. So I guess one of the common theme through all of this and the journey and everything else was not only my passion for travel and my desire to meet new people and my love of sport. Everything that happened was based on conversations. When I was in consulting for 8 years, I moved from one firm to another based on a conversation. I ended up studying sport based on a conversation. So I don't think we can ever underestimate the power of the conversations that you have and the people that you meet. So if I have 2 pieces of advice, it's listen to your body. As a startup and startup life, you hear these stories of people working 18, 20-hour days. Take time out, listen to what your body's telling you. You don't want to get sick. Trust me, it's a horrible experience. And also, be open to conversations, and next time you speak to someone, just consider, where will the conversation take you?